This first one was originally the first chapter in the book Jewelweed, and actually it was originally written in the first person, but you do a lot of changes in writing a book, and it was basically the book. This chapter starts with such a gripping image that we ended up feeling, a number of us ended up feeling that it was too gripping, and that it would convince the reader that the book was about this character. And in fact, it concerns this character, but it isn't just about him. Anyway, it's this chapter is called Opportunities. Cripes, still in the 5th grade. Ivan couldn't get over it. No matter how many times he tried, the shame burrowed into him from wherever he looked, from inside every thought. They'd kept him back. Everyone had agreed, his teacher, the guidance counselor, Miss Spindle, and the director of special education. Hold him back, they all said, like they wanted to grab his shoulders and waist and keep him from running off. Of course they had their reasons, lots of them. And they explained them before the Grange School Board after his mother repeatedly demanded for what she called a fair trial. Ivan doesn't know his numbers. He can't smell. He's incapable of following the simplest directions. This was a probationary year for Ivan because he failed the performance and proficiency standards as determined by the state at the end of 4th grade. His test scores barely reached the bottom lip of the bell curve. He has adequate language dexterity, but those skills don't outweigh his impaired abilities. He has delayed social functioning and immature decision-making. He can't concentrate or sit still. Ivan has no apparent aptitude for conceptualizing integers or manipulating numerical tokens of quantity. He's unsuited for the more demanding curriculum of 6th grade. He doesn't even try. His mother stood her ground. A defiant stare burned from beneath her brewer's baseball cap, and at the bottom of her faded jeans, her feet were planted inside new white running shoes, fished out of the bargain bin from the day before. She folded her arms in front of her and from time to time tugged at the bill of her hat, a quick, nervous movement that seemed to Ivan like she was batting away the words being thrown from the authorities sitting behind the tables. As far as Ivan was concerned, his mother was as fierce a defender as anyone could ever hope for. If the enemy hadn't outnumbered her 10-1, she would have won. She cut through even the most thickly bunched arguments with comments like, "He isn't like that at home, so how come he acts like that here? Whose fault is that? Those records don't prove anything. He's as smart as all get out when he's interested in something. Is passing tests all you people do? I thought you were supposed to actually teach something here. You're wrong about that. I don't believe it. You're lying." As the night wore on and the slippery yellow files of evidence mounted into a pile, a few stray ends of her black curly hair came jutting out of the metal eyelets in her hat, like burned tufts of grass through holes in concrete. It seemed like a bad sign to Ivan, and he got a sick feeling. At around 7:30, just as light began to die in the windows in the conference room, she lost her temper and called Mrs. Beamchamp a rotten excuse for a woman, and said Miss Spindle didn't have enough sense to come in out of the rain. Then she threatened to hit the director of special education if he didn't stop looking at her in the way that he was. Ivan thought he should have warned her. It never paid to get excited in school. The whole place was crouched down and ready to pounce on the slightest twitch of real feeling. Anyone who smuggled the teeniest smidgen of emotion into those airless halls had better beware. There was no limit to the forces that could be loosed on someone who didn't talk quietly, stand still in line, and wear that fake smile demanded inside the building. Frankly, Ivan was a little alarmed she didn't understand that. She must have gone to school at some time herself. And how could you possibly forget? They practically beat you to death with boredom. And he couldn't imagine how anyone could ever get over it. But this was just one of the many mysteries about his mother's past that he hadn't solved yet. After her outburst, all Mrs. Beamchamp had to do was put the file she was holding on the table and cast a long, sad look from his mother to the committee, making it clear that a vote for passing Danielle Workhouse's son into the 6th grade was a vote for parent terrorism. "We approve of the decision to hold him back," said the head of the school board. Riding home in their Bronco, his mother gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles and in a worried voice explained to Ivan how he shouldn't worry. Everything would turn out all right. Plenty of successful people had repeated 5th grade, and many, many others would have been successful if they had only had the opportunity to repeat 5th grade. Abraham Lincoln, she was pretty sure, had repeated 5th grade, following in the honored footsteps of Benjamin Franklin and St. Paul. All of them had repeated 5th grade and gone on to marry wealthy, attractive women, owned fancy homes, and earned the respect of all their neighbors. And besides, Ivan was a little small for his age, he pointed out, and this would give him a chance to catch up. Unfortunately, this seemed a lot like the problems he had with math. How was he supposed to catch up to the size of others when they kept growing too? As soon as he got to where they were now, they'd be bigger. Shouldn't he be ahead in size instead of holding him back? Wasn't that what had gone wrong in this size in the first place? The whole thing seemed a lot like 2nd grade subtraction. "See, Ivan, look here. Look at the board. Look. You have 12, and you take away 3, Mrs. Wallington would say. Take 3 away where? It doesn't matter. You just take 3 away. Look at the board, Ivan. Look at the board. Look up here. You start out with 12 what? It doesn't matter, Ivan. 12 anything. Could it be 12 cats? Yes, 12 cats. Then you take 3 away. Look at the board. How do I do that? We subtract. This is called subtraction, Ivan. How do you take away 3 cats? Where do you put them? Who's going to feed them? It doesn't matter where you put them. You take them away. Ivan, look here. Look at the board. We start off with 12. Who starts off with 12 cats? That's a lot of cats. The problem starts off with 12 cats. Where'd they come from? His mother went on to explain how repeating 5th grade would teach him patience, and because of it, he would be offered many opportunities for achievement. People would trust him because they would see that he would not run off before the job was finished. When he got bigger, everyone would see how much he had to offer because of repeating for 5th grade. He would be known as a great man. "Was my father small?" he asked. "I mean, was he small like me?" His mother was silent as she leafed through her memory and measured the height of his father. "No," she said. "Then why am I small?" "You get it from your father's mother, your paternal grandmother." "Is she small?" "She was." "Is she small now?" "No, she died." "Did they die together?" "No." "How did my father die?" "I already told you, Ivan. You said he died in a car accident, but you also said he died in a hospital. He was in an accident and he later died in a hospital." "How did he get to the hospital?" "Did he walk?" "What happened to the car?" "I told you, Ivan, it's just you and me now. We're together and we'll always be together, and that's all that matters. Just forget about your father." "You can't forget about someone you never met. Stop thinking about him." "Trying to stop thinking about him just makes me think about him even more." "Stop it." "But I don't see why you can't." "I said stop it, and I mean it." She gripped the steering wheel in a way that began to worry Ivan. "It's not fair that there are many things in this world that aren't fair, Ivan, and I know one young man who's about to get the whipping of his life if he doesn't respect his mother enough to do as he's told." Ivan looked out the window then and thought about his friend August, who as far as he could see was the only good thing about repeating 5th grade. Now they'd be together all the time. August was a little different, Ivan knew. There was no doubt about that. He was a lot different, really. He thought things and did things and said things that no one else ever would, like the time he said, "You know, Ivan, your mother's unnaturally quick to violence." It was because August was homeschooled before coming to Grange Elementary, and his mother mostly taught him from old and religious books on account of her being the woman pastor of the Word's Friends of Jesus Church. August said she never wanted him to go to public school at all, not even to step inside one, until he began spending so much time alone, roaming through the woods and fields around their house. Then after Ivan got a pet bat and named him Milton and started talking to him, his parents began whispering together after they thought he was asleep. His father said it didn't matter if August was a little different from other people, and there were more important things. But his mother wasn't so sure. She said if he got any more comfortable out of doors, he'd never be comfortable in human society. She feared he'd have trouble when he got older and turn out too much like she was. Anyway, his mother won the whispering contest, and they put August in Grange Elementary so he could be around kids like Ivan and learn to be normal. They were best friends. Ivan and August didn't get along very well with most people, but they got along together fine. It seemed strange, but it was true. For the same reason most other kids didn't like August, Ivan liked him. August's mom once said they were good company because they understood each other, but Ivan didn't think that was right enough. There was a big difference between understanding and liking was bigger. "Look, Ivan, I got to make a quick visit up here," said his mother, turning down a long, rutty drive. Because of the bumping, several balled-up candy bar wrappers and a bent plastic straw jiggled all the way across to the rust hole in the floor and fell out. At the end of the weeds was a shack with a tin roof on one side and some regular shingles on the other. "This won't take long," she said. "After I come back, we can go home, and I'll fix you something to eat, something you'll like." "Okay," Ivan said, and watched as the Rottweiler living in the abandoned automobile in the front yard came barking. His mother took off her baseball cap and arranged her black hair with her hands while looking in the rearview mirror. Then she found her name pin inside the bag of cleaning supplies and stuck it to her shirt. She stepped outside, ignored the dog like it had no teeth, and walked to the front door. Ivan had done a lot of waiting in the truck while his mother visited. About a year ago, she started working for Ace Cleaning. She and a bunch of others went into people's homes and cleaned them and did other jobs. Some people hired Ace to help them out when they were at work, but other people got sick or got old, and they called the government, and the government called up Ace and sent someone over. Anyway, that's what she did, and she did a lot of it. The Rottweiler came back to the abandoned car, but before climbing through the back door, it noticed another person inside the Bronco. It came over and started barking again until the window fogged up on the outside. Ivan felt empty then, horrible, like the dog knew he'd flunked 5th grade. He almost started crying, but instead he made his hands into fists and squeezed until they hurt. And then the anger came and he felt some better. When his mother walked out of the house, she guided an old bent-over woman with her robe dragging on the ground. They wobbled all the way to the truck and opened the door. "Here, Ivan, scoot over. We're taking Mrs. Goodenow to the hospital. I think she has a urinary tract infection. There now, in we go." The old lady mumbled something in an unknown language. "Yes, dear, we have your things. Don't worry," said his mother. "Here, let's get your legs wrapped up. There, that's better." The truck filled with oldness, and Ivan sat as far away from it as he could get without becoming part of his mother. At the entrance to the 3-story brick hospital in Grange, he again stayed in the truck and watched as his mother wobbled Mrs. Goodenow through the doors. Inside the glove compartment was a roll of lifesavers with only 3 or 4 missing. He peeled back the paper and peeled off the top one. Cherry. The taste reminded him of one time he and August had gone to see a movie. August said to keep it secret because he didn't want his mom to know on account of some swearing. In the lobby, they looked at the candy inside the glass case, and that's the first time August knew that they made packages of all red lifesavers, and they bought a pack. A little later, the doors to the front of the hospital opened again, and his mother stood in the opening and shouted something he couldn't quite hear. Then she went back inside to shout some more and finally came back to the truck. "Those idiots wanted to send her home," she said, turning the ignition key and stomping on the gas pedal. "Can you believe that, Ivan? An 86-year-old woman who lives alone and can't drive and can hardly see, and they wanted to send her home with a temperature of 103? Someone ought to shoot those worthless fools." By the time they got home, it had started to rain. Water from the downspout around the corner ran across the sidewalk in front of the meat locker. They splashed through it, and inside their apartment, the roof leaked in the corner of the kitchen where it had leaked before. Her mother got out the pail to catch the drips and put in a piece of wood so the splashing wasn't so loud. They ate carrots and macaroni and cheese. Then his mom fixed him a cup of hot chocolate while she drank her coffee. A little while later, he had the last half of an ice cream sandwich before brushing his teeth and going to bed. After Ivan lay down, he listened to the dripping in the other room and cars pulling in and out of the parking lot behind Smokey's. That old crying feeling got inside him again, and he stayed still and just hated school for a while. Then he could hear his mother cleaning up, and each time she walked past the doorway, her shadow streaked all the way to the wall. She went toward her bed, and all the lights went out except the bathroom glimmer. Then the glimmer went out, and orange from the lamp beside her bed came into the kitchen. She got in under the covers. She was probably reading her catalog, she thought. His mother had catalogs, stacks of them, with pictures of homes and rooms with furniture and clothes, kitchen utensils, automobiles, shoes, curtains, bedspreads, jewelry, watches, televisions, cameras, computers, camping equipment, snowmobiles, books, magazines, fans, coats, garages, lawn ornaments, flower seeds, mirrors, and framed pictures to hang on the walls. As soon as they paid off the money borrowed to buy the Bronco, she said they'd start getting some of the things other people had. When we get a place of our own, she said, we're going to have folks over and entertain, she said. Ivan tried to imagine who those folks might be, because no one ever came to their apartment except his grandmother, and she almost never came. She and his mother couldn't talk about anything without shouting at each other. And then grandmother would cry and say she did the best she could and leave. Then afterwards, she'd call back and they'd shout at each other over the phone. In the morning, they ate cold cereal. His mother used up all the milk, pouring it into Ivan's bowl. Said she didn't want any anyway. Because it was Saturday, they had to go into Ace Cleaning to hand in the reports. The building was not far away and they went on foot. The sidewalk and roads were still wet and with soaked trash along the curb. Everything had a watery smell. Inside the building, Ivan sat on one of the chairs next to the hoses. His mother told him to keep his hands to himself, and then she went and talked with Mrs. Borkel behind the counter. The two of them didn't seem to belong together, Ivan thought. His mother is hard and brown as a Slim Jim, and Professor and Supervisor Borkel all blotched and bulging like an uncooked bratwurst. She was upset his mother had not called the office before driving Mrs. Goodenow to the hospital. It was not proper procedure, she said. Dart, you can be an efficient and competent worker, but you must pay attention to the rules. You were written up for something like this a month ago, and it's a black mark on your record. His mother tugged at her hat, and Ivan was afraid she was going to say something, but she kept quiet. People who had known his mother a long time, including Grandma, often called her Dart instead of Danielle. She was apparently such a different person before he was born, she even had a different name. Mrs. Borkel slid some papers across the counter, and his mother read them without looking up. Something like this doesn't come along often, Mrs. Borkel said. It's a chance for you. You've had a rocky beginning, but if you work hard, you can make something of yourself. Do you know the Roebucks? I know who they are, said his mother. Good, then you know what it would mean to work for them. They're looking for a live-in to cook and clean and help the nurses take care of their son. As you see in the evaluation forms, managing Kevin falls within some of the training you received last year. The position doesn't start until summer, but I want you to consider it. This can be an important chance for you and Ivan. Roebuck Construction employs many people, and succeeding at this job would mean a great deal to your future with Ace. His mother stared into the papers on the counter. Would I be working for Ace or for Buck and Amy? She asked. You'd be working for Ace, but you'd be living at the Roebucks 24/7. Like I said, you don't need to decide right now, Dart. But how does this opportunity sound to you? I'll think about it, said his mother. You'll need to go over for an interview. I'd suggest doing it this week because there are others to consider. I've taken it upon myself to try to look out for you, Dart. I've tried, but there are others to consider. Thank you, Mrs. Borkel. His mother adjusted her baseball hat and they went towards the door. "Dart," said Mrs. Borkle, stopping their feet. "Did you hear that Blake Bookchester is up for parole?" "Who says?" asked his mother without turning around. "Blake's father said if he can find a sponsor, they'll release him." "That has nothing to do with me," said Danielle, and they went out. Thank you.